So what I wanted to talk a little bit about today, and I'm only going to talk for 30 minutes, so I've got somebody back there timing me. So kind of what I wanted to talk about today is the proper role of government, how it really, really works, and the role that you can play in making it work. So I want to start with this quote. It said, "Can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we have removed the only firm basis, which is a conviction in the minds of the people that their liberties are a gift from God, that they are not to be violated, but only by his wrath?" So what that is basically saying is, if we don't honestly believe that the liberties that we have and the Constitution that protects those liberties are given to us by our Creator, can we really defend and protect them? I think not. If we don't hold them in sacredness, then there's no way we can, because we don't know what they are. When we think about the Constitution and we think about it as the law of the land and the document that protects what we have been given, the Constitution should be taught in our homes, in our schools, in our churches. We should talk about it continuously. It should be in our conversations as often as it can. Because if we don't know what's in here, we don't know what we have to protect. If we don't know what's in here, we don't know what rights we have. When I go into the school sometimes and talk to the kids, I'll tell them, I'll say, I have something in my pocket, and it is more valuable than any precious gem on the face of the earth. It is more valuable than all of the gold that you could gather up, no matter how long you worked. And I have it here in my pocket. And so I'll ask them, I'll say, are you willing to die for what's in my pocket? Are you willing to stand and defend what's in my pocket? And they get this kind of funny look on their face, you know, because if I hold up a phone or a candy bar or something, they know what they're going to talk about. They know what is there. And they'll look at me and I'll say, your freedom, your liberty, your rights from God are what's in my pocket. But if you didn't know what it was and you didn't know it was there, you don't know enough about it to feel strongly enough about it to defend and protect it. And that's why it's so important that we understand. And then once we understand and know, we have to share that and we have to get that out there and we have to talk to our kids and we have to talk to the younger generation. My 2 grandsons just got on the student council in their school, and my son called me on the phone and he said, I am so mad at you. Well, you know, what did I do if you're going to be mad at me? And he said, I am just so mad at you. He said, if you would never have gotten into politics, maybe my kids wouldn't have thought they needed to get into politics either. I said, okay, fine, whatever. And then he said, but you know, Mom, he said, I know that if we don't have good people in these positions to defend what we believe in, then we don't really have anything. And he said, so I'm not really mad at you. He said, I just had to give you a bad time and let you know how, you know, what your grandsons had done. So I think it's really, really important then that we talk about our Constitution and that we know what it is. Now, when our government was set up, we were set up, as we all know, with the 3 different distinct levels of government. So many people in the world today look at our government as it, as this big, inanimate object that none of us have anything to do with, but that rules our world. The government is not an it. The government is not an inanimate object. It's not like a car that we drive. It's not like a building that we're going to walk into. The government is what we create. The government is made by the people that we choose to represent us. And that's it. It has absolutely no more power than we choose either by our activity or our inactivity to have. If we're active in our government, if we're aware of who we vote for, if we know that those people that we send to Washington, D.C. or to the Idaho State House represent our views and our values and will stand for us and protect us and draw the line in the sand and not let bad legislation get through, not let red flag law get through, not let these things slip through the cracks in the name of safety or for the children or to protect everybody, then we need to make sure that the people, if they're not in office doing it now, we need to make sure that the people that go into office next time will do that for us. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about something that I haven't really shared publicly too much, and it's my personal experience in the legislature my first couple of years. Well, and even last year, because there are people here in this room that can tell you more than one day I got hauled back into the hall because I tend to, I believe in negotiation, I believe in relationship building, but there are some things that you just don't compromise on, and our constitutional rights are those. Okay? So when I first came into the legislature, I carried gun legislation. I had the Stand Your Ground beef up, which we're going to work on again this year too, because it's just not quite there yet. We need to make sure that if you have to use deadly force to defend yourself, your home, or your property, which is your God-given right to do, that your rights are protected and that you are not immediately the criminal. See, due process in our country is headed down a bad, bad direction. And we need to take a stand, and we need to take a hard stand. So that was the first legislation that I had. So Tom Lurcher was chairman of State Affairs. And that bill had to go through State Affairs. So, you know, because I'm a mom and because I'm a grandma and because that's what moms and grandmas do is negotiate between kids and grandkids to get them to all get along, I would go into Tom's office 2 or 3 times a week at least, minimum, sometimes more. And I would sit down with Tom and I would talk to him about the legislation, and I would tell him, you know, this is what the people of the state of Idaho want, and that's why I'm here. That's what I ran on. This is why they elected me over a 16-year establishment person who had been in the legislature forever. I didn't have a political name. I don't come from a political family. The gun owners sent me here, basically.
Yeah.
Okay? So I go in there and I'm trying to build this relationship with Tom, and I'm trying to negotiate with him on how to get this bill a hearing, how to get it in, and the Second Amendment Alliance, Greg would call me and he would say, how's it going? And I would say, well, I'm still talking. He would say, well, if you decide you need us, you let me know, because the gun owners want this. And so I negotiated and negotiated and negotiated, and I talked and I talked and I talked, and I couldn't get anywhere with Tom. And so finally I told Greg, I said, well, I'm not really feel like I'm really getting anywhere, because one day I walked into his office and he was in there with an intern and they were making fun of something that Alexandria Kincaid had written into the legislation. And I thought, well, now you can make fun of me, but I don't think you should make fun of somebody like Alexandria Kincaid. Okay, she knows her stuff. She's a great attorney. She's a great gun attorney, and she knows her stuff. So Greg says, well, we'll put a little pressure. We'll put a little pressure on Tom and see what we can get, see what we can do. So the gun owners, all of you, put a little pressure on Tom, and I go back in, and I get a little heat because the gun owners put a little pressure on Tom, and I get a little heat because the gun owners have put a little pressure on some of the other members of the State Affairs Committee, and you know, I get told the stories of all the bad things that can happen and all of this stuff, and I'm just saying, well, you know, let's hear the bill, then we don't have to worry about any of that. Nothing happened. So this goes on until just about to the very end of the session, and standing in the hall with one of the education lobbyists, and Tom's secretary comes up to me and she said, Tom's going to give the bill a hearing Tuesday. Well, we had made arrangements so that when the bill was going to get a hearing, that Leanne Anderson was going to come down from northern Idaho to testify, because her husband spent 10 years in prison defending his home when 2 people came into it, and he used deadly force because he thought they were going to kill him. So we were going to fly her down, or the gun owners were going to fly her down. I was just going to meet her at the airport. So I called Greg and I said, I've got a witness. He's standing right here. We're told we're going to get a hearing on the gun bill. He gets things together. You all pitch in, get the money here so that she can fly down here. They fly her down here. I'm on my way to the airport to pick her up Sunday night. I get a text message from Tom's secretary that said Tom's changed his mind. No hearing on the gun bill. After you all had spent money to bring her down here, the time, the energy, and the effort to get it done. So then, no hearing on the bill. Then the next year, same thing. No hearing on the bill. I negotiated. I tried to build a relationship. I did everything I could. And this is a good thing. But my point is this. There comes a time when building a relationship isn't going to work, and you've got to have the muscle behind you to get stuff done. Tom Lurcher's no longer in office. And Tom Lurcher, I don't have anything against Tom personally, but he's not in office because he did not listen to the will of the people, because he didn't respond to what the citizens of the state of Idaho wanted, and the citizens, the voters in his district and the state of Idaho put political pressure on him. Now I know of 3, maybe 4 legislators since I've been involved in Idaho state government who are not in office because gun owners in the state of Idaho come together, they're supportive, they stand for their rights, and they show up to vote. My first opponent voted against constitutional carry. He's not in office anymore. Chairman Lurcher's not there anymore. Chad took his place. Julie Van Orden talked about giving the gun owners, well, I guess we could give them a few rights to carry a gun. She's not in office anymore. And whoever it was that former Representative Hanks, because he voted against constitutional carry as well. But the point I'm trying to make here is, it is our government, and it will be what we allow it to be. It will be a tyranny, a tyrannical government, if we sit back and we don't be engaged and we don't take part. We can negotiate all we want. I think that's a good thing. We need to build relationships, and I think that's a great thing. It's part of life. It's part of being human. That there comes that point where you have got to draw a line in the sand. You have got to take a stand. And something else I kind of wanted to talk about briefly is I was at the Veterans Administration this morning for the stand down day where they give stuff to the homeless vets, haircuts, dental work, doctors' checkups, cold weather gear and stuff. I'm supposed to not cry anymore when I'm in public, so I'm working really hard on it. And there was a veteran there who had served in Desert Storm. And he started to talk about the coming Civil War here in our country. And he said, I'm just really glad that I'm really, really old and I'm not going to be here for it. And then we started to talk about the highway of death. And I've heard this story before because years ago I had a friend who had served and he was there. And he said the sights and the smells and the loss of life and the destruction and the devastation, and both of these soldiers said the same thing at the end. They said, whatever we do, no matter what we have to do, we do not want that on our soil. We do not want war on our country. We don't want it here. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is we're going to fight the fight. We need to hang in there. We can't let the powers of darkness come in and destroy our liberties, destroy our state, destroy our country. And I'm so proud of each and every one of you that are here today, because that shows that you care enough to be here. You care enough to stand up. You care enough to call your legislators and try to build a relationship with them, and call your congressmen and try to build a relationship with them. But when that doesn't work and they get jerked out in the hall so the leadership can stand around them, you're waiting in the wings for them so that you can give them a big hug at the end of the day and say, we've got your back, and we will stand behind you when you do what you have to do to make this happen. And I am so grateful for those of you who have been there. So grateful for you who have been there to hold my hand and for me to look up and see that you're there and to know that you've got my back. And then when we need phone calls and emails and people in the street and people on the steps of the Capitol, you're there. And I'm so grateful for that. And that is how government works. And that's how we end up with a government that is a republic and not a democracy or not a tyranny.
Good.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know how much time, Kristen.
You got like 14 minutes.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? We'll do 10 minutes questions. And if you don't have any questions, we'll just move on to the next speaker. Yes?
For some that haven't been paying attention, what does Governor Little do in the discussion or in the Second Amendment?
He signed House Bill 206 last year, but I don't really hear a whole lot from him about his stand on guns. He says he's supportive, says he's a gun owner. I don't know. I can't say when it came right down to it where he would come down for sure. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, I actually heard last year you tried to introduce a bill to stop the time change in Idaho. It wasn't like no support
At all?
So, but I've already about to have a time change here in a couple weeks, I think, and then all my kids will be outside in the dark, pitch black at the bus stop. So it's just ridiculous.
Well, and then the time change goes beyond just an inconvenience, because I have a ton of research on the health effects of when we change the time. And that was all presented in State Affairs. I had a PowerPoint presentation and stuff, and I had emailed all of that information to every legislator in our state. I had emailed it to all of the House members and all of the Senate members, so they were aware of the physical and the health effects of the time change. So maybe we can make it happen again this year. We'll keep working at it because it just makes no sense. Yes?
Come on, Christy.
When, like running for the Senate, I get enough phone calls and emails that I feel like I can't not buck the pressure anymore. Thank you, yes.
The representatives that you were naming that weren't supportive of carry as part of their constituents, what is the rationale? What are they saying to their, what is their...
On the constitutional carry?
Yes.
The one was former law enforcement, and so a lot of times we have a hard time to get support for our gun legislation from some law enforcement. Now, I want to be really clear on that. There's a difference between the Fraternal Order of Police, a lobbyist organization. It's a national organization. And there's a lot of difference between them and then just your local law enforcement that you work with every day in their patrol cars and on the street. I find that for the most part, most of them are very, very supportive of constitutional carry. I hear all the time from our law enforcement that the more people we have that have guns, the safer we are, because nobody's gonna mess, because they know there's always that chance that somebody's carrying a gun. So that's their rationale. You hear all kinds of things. The big thing that I hear, like from the law enforcement organizations and those legislators that were against it, is, well, we can't control gang members that might have a gun, and we can't just have everybody running around with a gun because we don't know what will happen. But the statistics show that the more constitutionally carried a state's laws are, the lower the incidence of gun violence is. So it doesn't flow. Any other questions? Yes. I don't know. I don't know. That is a situation all into itself, and we're working really hard at looking at what changes need to be made in legislation. So that I think part of the problem that we have is the definition of like what neglect is, and the definition of some of the tools that are used to come into our homes and check on our children are vague at best, and they can be interpreted way too broadly. So we need to really look at that and fix it. And we've got some really good ideas, and we're working on some legislation to fix that problem. Anything else? Yes.
No questions. On behalf of myself and probably everybody in this room today.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, I'll let you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot of reps that spend hours with their constituents, that show up for court hearings. Thank you, Christy. I'm going to draw another raffle ticket. So if you've just come in, we have raffle tickets. We're doing a 50-50 raffle. We're doing items here that were donated, Liberty items, and also there is a shotgun. What kind of shotgun is that, Eric? 12 gauge. 12 gauge. Weatherby. 12 gauge Weatherby shotgun. You can buy a raffle ticket for that too.
Don't tell them about that. Don't tell them. Don't tell them about that.
Yes. Yes.